Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans. What we do around here, is bring about conversations of a psychological, mental health, emotional health paradigm. We do that as often as we can, usually several times per week. We continue that connective. First thing is emotional trauma. So when we begin to kind of look at what can cause emotional trauma or the things that are around emotional trauma, having worked in trauma recovery for 15 years, there's very little I haven't heard. If you are working through emotional trauma and trying to get to a place where you can manage your life a little bit better, would love to be of assistance to you in any way that I can. Please feel free to reach out at PO Perception and or in the About Me section of this YouTube page. What are some signs, though, that people may be working through emotional trauma? The first is avoidance. Avoidance of certain topics, certain discussions, certain memories. When a person is constantly avoiding something that generally people wouldn't, or they noticeably always avoid the same topic, the same concepts, the same ideas, it's usually because there's trauma around those concepts, ideas, whether that be dating, whether that be work, whether that be family related stuff. Generally, there's larger topics around which people avoid things, but when a person is constantly in avoidance of certain aspects of their life, it is usually related to some level of trauma. Obviously, being there for a person through trauma is a difficult thing to do, and even getting support in how to support people well through that process can be an important part of kind of working through things. The next is they're always tired. Now, tired can come forward in two distinct ways. First is mental tiredness or mental exhaustion. The second, obviously, is physical tiredness. Mental exhaustion, though, will show through kind of being unable to focus and or irritability. There's many ways that a person can show themselves to be mentally tired without really talking about it. And so it's important to begin to understand how to be there for a person who is experiencing or expressing periods of mental exhaustion. And so when we do that, it's important to know how to connect in that way, in a way that is intelligent, smart, and ultimately leading someone in a good direction. The next thing there is, as we begin to kind of look at moving forward, the next is they'll insult themselves or they'll put themselves down. Constant insults to oneself can be difficult to watch or hear, especially if we love the person that's doing it to themselves. But understand if they have a negative view of themselves on a continual basis, the idea that they have value beyond what it is that they've done or how they've expressed themselves can be extremely difficult for people to begin to understand and or see and or feel. And so the challenge is to be more honest, be more open, be more directed, can often be overwhelming, and begin to know how to be there for yourself in that way can also be difficult. And so shutting oneself out in a kind of directed manner can often becomes extremely difficult, and thus insulting oneself becomes almost the regular paradigm. The mood of the individual is constantly fluctuating almost in a negative way. So constant fluctuation of mood can be something like they're extremely happy until something happens and then ultimately they crash, or they're extremely sad until one thing breaks for them and then they're happy again. Obviously, having a few days like this, even a few weeks like this, isn't a sign of major issue, but if there's constant fluctuation over more than a couple of weeks and the person is virtually unpredictable or very unpredictable in how they relate emotionally to things, this can be a sign and a very a good one of kind of that stressor, that issue. The next thing there, and the final thing I want to touch on in this particular audio is addiction. Whether that addiction be to physical partners, whether that addiction be to drugs, alcohol, gambling, or any other addiction to control, addiction to negative thinking, basically an addictive personality is going to speak to the level of trauma that a person has. When a person is trying to work through things, it's because they're constantly trying to feel better, and sometimes feeling better can take the form of, you know, kind of sabotaging oneself by doing things that aren't going to lead in a positive direction, but they really don't care about the positive direction they're not leading in. as long as they get the painkiller aspect of what's going on and or how to kind of manage and balance things out in a good way. And so it's important to begin to look at that and kind of balance things out. So hopefully this is helpful. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.